Hello students, welcome to BTech 360. Every college says 100% placement. Every website also shows the highest package. But no one tells you the most important truth. Placements don't happen college-wise. They happen branch-wise. Two students can sit in the same campus, attend the same convocation, and yet walk out with different career outcomes. Simply because they choose different branches in the same college. That's why choosing a college without understanding branch-wise placements data is one of the biggest mistakes that students make. In this series, we'll go beyond hype and headlines. No cherry-pick salaries, no inflated averages, no marketing language. Because the right question is not whether this college is good or not. The right question should be, is this branch in this college good for me or not? So what we'll do now is to cover material science and metallurgy engineering. And this is an important branch for you to understand. And as I said, the idea for us is to help you decide which branch versus which college, which branch and which college, and which branch has a better prospect. We're going to discuss material science and metallurgy engineering in terms of the kind of prospect that they have in terms of placement percentages, average salary, median salary, highest salary, all those things we'll cover, right? And remember, what we're doing now is to present to you data which has come from RTI. It is not there in public domain. We filed RTI reports with the governments, with all the agencies and all, and got this data out. So it's very exclusive for BTech 360. Please look at that. And also if you're not subscribed to BTech 360, do it right now, because we're going to help you decide which college, which branch, which course, which pathway. And for that, we'll present to you all data that's out there so that you can take the best decision possible. Right. Coming back to what is the data that we have. For material and metallurgical engineering, we had data from 8 IITs and 7 NITs. You must remember one thing, that not all IITs and not all NITs offer this kind of a branch. So when you talk 15, it doesn't mean that it's sort of 45, 50, we only have 15. No, the number of institutes that might be offering this particular branch might be only 20 only. But we have data of from 15 institutions. When we looked at that data, and how does the RTI report come in? Based on the question that we send across, this is the kind of data that comes to us. For example, if you see, this is about IIT Jodhpur, one of the RTI responses that we got. And what is the data it says? For metallurgical engineering, I think this is the one. 23 students sat for placement, 14 were placed. Average salary is 13.21 lakhs and maximum salary was 26.58 lakhs. This is the kind of data that we get, which we have collected for all the 15 institutions that I spoke about, and we're presenting it out here for you. When we look at the data, IIT Bhubaneswar, 19 students sat for placement, 17 were placed, right? And the total placement percentage is 89.47%. For IIT Kanpur, 62 students sat for placement, 49 were placed, 79% placement. Ropar, 18 students sat for placement, 9 were placed, placement percentage 50%. Gandhinagar, 16 students sat for placement, 9 were placed, 56.25%. IIT Jammu, 26 students were placed, sat for placement, 17 were placed, 65.38% placement. IIT Jodhpur, 23 students sat for placement, 14 were placed, 60.87% placement. NIT Durgapur, 57 students sat for placement, 51 were placed, 89.47% placement. NIT Roorkela, 71 students sat for placement, 57 were placed, 80.28% placement. So this is the kind of data that we're showing. We're showing it for all the 15 institutions that we got data. And what is the average CTC? In IIT Kanpur, it's 16.6 lakh for this particular branch, which is material science and metallurgy engineering. Right? IIT Ropar, 9.74 lakhs was the average salary for this particular branch. IIT Jammu, 10 lakh is the average salary. Jodhpur, 13.21 lakh. NIT Durgapur, 7.8 lakh. And NIT Roorkela is 10.38 lakh. So that's what is the average salary for this. Moving further, IIT Dhanbad, 30 students sat for placement, 27 were placed, 90% placement. IIT Roorkee, 47 students sat for placement, only 19 students were placed, 40.43%. In fact, this is much more alarming here, because if you look at IIT Roorkee very carefully, the number of students who were admitted was 80. Of which only 47 were sat for placement, which also means that many did not participate for placement because there were no jobs. If you look at this data also, very clearly it reflects that there is no jobs out here, which is why this happened. So from the students who were admitted, only 24% students got placed, which is a very, very alarming number for a legacy institute like IIT Roorkee. Right. Now, Hamirpur, 25 students sat for placement, all 25 were placed, 100% placement. Surathkal, 45 students sat for placement, 38 were placed, 84.44%. placement. NIT Calicut, 15 students sat for placement, 12. Now here also, if you look at it very carefully, the total intake is 30 students, but only 15 sat for placement. If you take it from the total students who are admitted, only 40% students were placed. But because they removed 15 students because they did not even opt for placement is what they claim, that the 80% comes in. Otherwise, I would take it as 40%. I would always err on the side of caution and tell students that look at the number of students who are admitted to the number of students who are placed. That's a better percentage number for you than those who are opting out for placement, because that is very less. Students typically first look for the first job. If they get a good job, they jump onto a job before they jump onto anything else. IIT Nagpur, 80 students sat for placement, 69 were placed. 86.25% placement. MNIT Jaipur, 97 students sat for placement, 78 were placed, 80.41% placement. So in all, when you look at this data, right, this is what we found for metallurgy, material science and metallurgy engineering. This is what we're discussing at this point in time, right? We had data from 15 institutions where the total intake was 863, but only 631 sat for placement. This for me is alarming, because when you look at this very carefully, about 30% students are not even sitting for placement. That is very dangerous. You know, we're only dealing with this as 70% possibly, give or take a couple of percentage, right? Of the 631, 491 students were placed. So if you take it from the intake, the total students who are admitted, the placement percentage for this particular branch, which is material science and metallurgy engineering, is 56.89% from the actual intake. But when you look at it from the number of students who opted for placement, which is what the institutions claim, it is 77%, right? When you compare it to the best branch out there, which is CS branch, 81% students were placed at an average salary of 20.35 lakh. In the case of material science and metallurgy engineering, 56.89% were placed at 10.65 lakh, which is 50% of what it is for CS. So that is where the prospects are. We'll keep covering a lot more branches as moving forward, because we have data from all these IITs, NITs and IIITs. If you want me to cover any particular branch that you're very interested in, write to us and we'll be happy to cover that. Please subscribe to BTech 360 if you've not already done that. Thank you so much. Namaste.